dumb. I mean, I might look occasionally.
That's all right. Hey everybody, welcome to the WMGSO Twitch stream. I'm your host, Sham Watermelon Farm. Today we have our very special guest, our conductor, Nigel Horn. Welcome, Nigel.
Thank you so much, Tracy.
Yeah.
Good afternoon to you, and good afternoon to everybody out there.
So we today are playing Super Mario Galaxy. We are going to feature Gusty Garden Galaxy. If we get to it, we're about halfway there in the star progression. But let's get started and we'll have some fun. So today, I thought I would pick Nigel's brain about being a conductor, about his perspective of game music from a non-gamer standpoint, and just WMGSO then and now, because Nigel's been with us from the very, very beginning when we were rehearsing in a basement in Living Faith Church in Rockville. So it's been a long, strange journey from there to this Twitch channel, but here we are. So, Nigel, could you tell us a little bit about your background in music and how you came to be conductor for the orchestra?
Well, my background is twofold. Firstly, I learnt the cornet in the local brass band in the south of England, and then at the same time I started singing as a boy treble with the nice little voices I used to have, which is difficult to believe now, I admit, with the school choir. So I would say that throughout my early years, singing in the choir and playing in the band were of equal importance and equal weight to me. Mm-hmm. So how did I get started in music? Well, I'll give you this little story, if I may, a little bit of an indulgence in a story about me. When I was about 8 years old, my mother tells me about this, I can't remember. Believe it or not, I was quite a cute little boy when I was about 8 years old.
So you say.
Well, we had a piano in the house. I don't really know why. Parents weren't musicians at all, but we had a piano in the house, and I would dabble with that. I'd hit the notes, I'd write a bit of music, taught myself to read music, and write a few notes down and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Anyway, one day my dad, I'm afraid, chopped it to bits and put it onto the bonfire. And I was... my mum tells me the story that she came in and said, "Why are you crying?" Because I was crying myself to sleep, basically. And I said, "Well, you know, that piano really meant so much to me. I never knew that piano meant so much to you." It seemed a bit strange, but anyway, that's what she said. And she said, "A couple of your cousins are starting to learn brass instruments in the local band. Would you like to go?" And I said, "Sure, of course." And the rest, as they say, is history, because that's what set me on the goal, certainly, of playing, and of playing in community groups, and learning outside of school, being taught by a euphonium player, the third euphonium player in the band, who's really good at teaching a small group of kids, about 12 of us, how to play brass instruments. The chorus singing the choir, that happened when I moved up into the secondary school, and everybody, this was a boys only school, whereas Britain is very different, and everybody got voice tested, and if you were good, you were in the choir, whether you like it or not, and if you're bad, you're not in it. You had 2 years, and then after 2 years you'd leave if you want to. And we were pretty good. We had about 100 boys and masters in the choir. We tackled some pretty good stuff. Some Purcell, some Haydn, some Handel, and that's too bad.
That's too bad. It's just too bad.
I don't think Haydn, Handel, and Purcell are too bad, but I guess maybe that. And that is really how I got myself started.
That is so cool. So that's interesting you say you started with piano, because I actually did as well.
Right.
Like my very first music ever was piano, and I think that's the way for a lot of our members as well, is they just got their start on one instrument, started on another, just because it was what was expected of you when you were younger. So it's
right. Well, I would say this, as you can probably tell, and as I've just hinted for the people who are keen and really listening here, I was not born in the United States. I was born in the very southeast of England, And yes, there is a community music program, and yes, there is a school music program, but I don't think it's advanced as it is over in the States. In fact, I think it's something, as an immigrant, that Americans should be very proud of. That just about every town, however large or small, many retirement communities, many even villages, have their own community band which will welcome anybody of any standard. They can go along and play even if they've not played for about 40 years. Say if you've not played piano for a few years, you could still go.
Probably
well,
so.
maybe not piano, but you know, many band instruments, and I think that's fantastic. And also schools as well. Elementary school is a great system in the country for giving children the chance to learn any instrument they want, and I'm always at awe of the standard of even your quotes, average unquotes, elementary school teacher, how they can just be a master of so many instruments and teach the children around them how to play and how to be enthused. And if one in, I don't know, let's pluck a figure out of the sky, which I have no evidence of whatsoever. Just say 1 in every 10 of those elementary school children carries on and plays at the community level. We're not talking about professional, we're talking about as amateurs, we're talking about people who enjoy it.
Yeah.
People, for example, who are the bedrock of the Washington Metropolitan Chamber Symphony Orchestra. I mean, isn't that fantastic? Isn't that awesome? Isn't that a great gift?
Yeah.
It's a great gift to the nation, it's a great gift to humanity, it's a great gift to, I don't know, the future.
Sure, and we have a fair amount of music teachers in our ensemble as well, who I know I can speak for, oh no, there I go. And hey, Firefox, Tazy Major, thanks for joining us today and for watching me fail miserably at this probably one of the worst games that I know how to play. I think I've established myself as just not being very good at video games throughout this entire stream, but this one in particular is really bad. Goodbye. Alright, let's try it again. So you started off as a chorister. That is...
I did, yes.
That is news to me. So what happened next? How did you come to be a singer to a brass band, musician, I guess, to conductor?
Well, the two things happened in parallel, really. So let's talk about, first of all, about singing. So I was very fortunate. I had two singing teachers, music teachers, who I studied the theory of music with at school in Ramsgate in Kent. And the first one was very old school. He retired and was replaced by the second one, who was very new school. So you got a completely different take on lessons, on music, on schooling, and on everything. And as a result of that, I got an absolute love of singing in choirs of that type of music that I was talking about earlier. When I left school to go to university, I joined the college choir. Now the truth is my voice is not that good, but when it broke it was not really that good, and I'm not being falsely modest, it just is the way that it is. You can't help that. I don't have a great singing voice, but I was able to read music and able to sing the notes that are on there, which is a great help. So I sang in the college choir, which was only about 30 people, and we specialised in madrigals and all the way through to the music of Bruckner and Briand. And we put on a couple of concerts a year, and they're always really good. After I graduated, I took a bit of time out from singing, and then I moved away from the London area, which is where I went to university and where I had my first job, up to the north of the country, up to a place called Barnsley, which is close to Leeds and Sheffield in the county of Yorkshire. And I sang in a very small group of singers, the Thornhill Singers, about 8 or 9 of us. And I left and then went to the Barnsley Mixed Voice Choir. And we sang, in both those groups, we sang much more lighter music, often music from the musicals, for example, of the 30s and 40s. So, and since then, I've not sung since, and many people will say that's a great pleasure. because if you see me, or hear me I should say, standing in front of the excellent chorus at WMGSO attempting to sing some notes and attempting to say attempting to say this is how the diction, I can do the diction, but how the notes could go, it's just hope for the best.
No.
Am I putting you off?
No, not at all. This is just me and not you.
The playing side then was entirely different. The playing side was genre of music known as brass bands. Now, when you say, okay, I played in a brass band, that can mean anything to anybody. I suppose over in the US, there are a couple of styles of brass bands that people will mostly think of. The majority will think of a New Orleans style jazz band. They call themselves brass bands, a group of, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 musicians, which will include woodwind instruments as well, and they were playing blues and jazz and so on. Another big type of brass band is the Balkan style brass band from Europe. A not so well known style of brass band is the British style brass band, which you can gain from its name. Started in the north of England in about the 1830s. And I could talk for the next 2 hours about that, so I better not, because this is not really the topic that we're to talk about.
We'll do a brass band stream one of these days.
But that would be great. Yeah. Let's just say that in the 1830s and 1840s, there was a big technological leap in all musical instrument manufacture, not least of which was brass manufacture, the ability to be able to play chromatic runs and all the notes of the chromatic scale, which beforehand had not been the case. That coupled with the Industrial Revolution, soldiers coming back from the Napoleonic Wars, getting jobs up the north, and they were run by bosses who wanted to really manage people outside of work as well as inside of work. So they wanted to make sure that outside of work they would be attending church, they wouldn't be going down the pub and drinking. They would do something constructive with their 3 hours of spare time every week that they were given. So what he would do, and it was always of course what he would do would be to buy a set of instruments and get the latest arrangements by Herr Wagner or whatever, and book in perhaps a professional or semi-professional conductor, and you'll get the musical groups going. So they have instruments all by themselves which are peculiar to that type, and I would say that with the exception of perhaps trombones and tubas and flugelhorns, we have instruments only of use in that. So I learnt with the cornet, moved over to the alto horn, played in a band in London called the Hendon Brass Band, no longer exists sadly, and then after that moved into two things, moved away from brass playing, moved into conducting, which is where we are now, and finally also moved into playing percussion with a couple of bands in Yorkshire. I was very, very lucky to play with a couple of bands in the top level. So, do you mind if I answer some of the questions?
Yeah, sure. We've got a bunch coming in now.
What range do I sing in? Okay, do you want to ask the questions to me?
Yeah, so Jedi Amanda says, what range do you sing in? Or maybe this is a then and now question.
What range do I sing in? I'm very, very lazy, I'll be honest with you. So, although I've got quite a high speaking voice, I don't have the gruff, full sounded voice that every male likes to think they have. Being lazy, I can't be bothered to sing tenor, it's too much effort. So I always sing bass. And I wasn't able to get a great volume, but I was always able to get down to say a low E flat. And what happened is when we did the tests at school, I told you about the tests that everybody went into, every boy went into. Well, when our voice broke, the mechanism to decide whether you would be a tenor or bass was he played a C on the second space up on the bass clef and say, "Can you comfortably sing that?" I said yes. He said, "Fine, fine, you're a bass." the way that it worked. But the
No
truth, but the truth is, since then I've not wanted to be a tenor because it's just so much effort, and it's fantastic to hit the high C's and coming in Burana, but hitting succession of high Fs one after another is just too much.
Fair enough. I had another question from a Walt owner. Who is your favorite British composer?
Oh, that's really putting me on the spot. It's very difficult to say. I am torn. I'm really seriously torn between the music of Purcell, who was very much ahead of his time. Some of the music we sang at school had harmonies that would be quite happily thrown out in the 19th century for being too advanced. And I guess that in terms of more modern people, it's going to be a toss-up between Sir Edward Elgar and Gustav Holst. It probably falls into the Elgar camp.
Any particular reason, or just
no? Coming back to school, I was fortunate enough to study the Dream of Gerontius, which is a major oratorio by him, and is a. And by studying that, I was able to get an insight into his life and an insight into the particular music and how it worked together. And I've always liked that. And the two actually, well, if we include Vaughan Williams, there are three composers in the early 20th century who wrote some band music. And Edward Elgar's Seventh Suite is probably my favourite piece of band music of all time.
We got some high fives for Purcell in the chat as well.
Yes. I'm pleased about that. That's
very
great.
cool. And then Jedi Amanda had another question about Baroque opera, if that is.
Oh, that's not my centre of. Are we talking here? So we're not talking Monteverdi. We're talking more sort of Handel and.
I think so. Yeah, more early music.
Right.
Earlier.
Right. What was the question?
There. I guess. Oh, come on. There, we got this. Woo!
Now, for Walt Horner, just have a chance to play properly or listen properly to Crown Imperial March. Do you know, William Walton dropped out of Oxford, I believe, because he found it too boring, and he was failing at everything, so he dropped out.
Oh my
I think that story's right. Don't look it up on Wikipedia.
I will not look it up on Wikipedia.
So I'm sorry, what was the question about?
So about Baroque opera, I think Jen, if you could, sorry, we missed it. We have to scroll a little bit to get there. But in the meantime, let's fall off and die again. Do you think we could? So we have your background in brass bands. How did you come to conduct WMGSO?
Well, 2 weeks ago, you had Chris Apple on the hot seat here talking about some of his arrangements and how he approaches writing music. Chris came across an undergraduate paper that I'd written on the history of brass bands in the United Kingdom and how they came to be formed. And at the very end, I had a paragraph or two talking about possible future. And amongst them was the thoughts of maybe a more advanced, for them anyway, harmonies like quarter tones, which is hardly advanced, but by some of the work that they do, it is. Chris sent me an email saying, well, that was quite interesting. What did you do with quarter tones? Because I said that's something I wanted to investigate. And I had to email back and admit that I'd done nothing.
Oh, no.
So I can't remember if he replied to that or ignored it, or if he said thanks or whatever. And about a year later, he emailed me back saying, we've formed this symphony orchestra. Would you be interested in auditioning to conduct it? Do you remember I talked to you a year ago? And I had to admit, no, I didn't, and I've told him, apologised for him this to him afterwards. I did not remember talking to him about it, but I can remember having talked about that with somebody. I just didn't realise it was him. So I went along and auditioned for the position, and I did that in a very strange thing. It was not what I was expecting. I don't know what I was expecting, but I was not expecting this. what happened was I auditioned by conducting a boombox in front of the...
I hadn't heard the story, sorry.
You have?
I have not heard the story,
Okay.
no.
I was standing in front of a boombox with the then board of directors, or the founding board of directors of WMGSO, where Chris, I presume, had put on a recording, an MP3 concept file of Demerung. So he said, we're going to get you one bit to conduct. And I said, I bet it's going to be the 7/4 bit in the middle. And he said, well, funny you say that, but it is, in fact, the 7/4 bit in the middle. So I conducted the 7/4 bit in the middle to, of course, the concept file, which was perfectly in keeping with 7/4 time. So I guess it must have been done okay, and there was the usual grilling and question and answer. What is it you want in an orchestra? What is it you're looking for, and things like that. So I got the position, and we never looked back since then. That would have been what, 4 or 5 years ago.
I've lost track of time entirely. I'm sure someone in the chat could tell us exactly how long it's been, but let's just make it an even 5. 5 is a good year.
It's about that.
Oh my gosh. So a question that we got in the chat was, wow, you know, can I just say, in my defense, I'm looking back at the chat screen, I'm looking at Nigel, and I'm trying to do all this really precise jumping. So you're making fun of me for now for not playing this game very well.
Well, just avoidance of any doubt, you're doing better than I would be doing at this stage, were I to be playing.
Oh my gosh. So do you, from ZD Major asks, what is your favorite part, would you say, of conducting this group?
Oh, that really puts me on the spot. And you know, it sounds like an answer I must give to say there are so many things I can't choose from them. But actually, that's really is the case. You know, there's a set of music that I otherwise wouldn't have been introduced to. There's the opportunity to conduct a community level symphony orchestra that's really on the way up. There's the opportunity to work with a set of musicians and a set of administrative staff and the board of directors. They're very much on the same wavelength as I am, or they will put it that I'm on the same wavelength as they are. So it's very difficult to say. I suppose if I have to say the one thing that above all trumps it is that rush you get when you're on the stage and the set of rehearsals comes together. You know, the last concert, which would be about a month or 2 ago already, it was just down the road from here in Rockville High School in Rockville, Maryland.
Goodbye.
We showcased 2 works in amongst the whole concert. One of those was a symphonic length piece based on the music of Undertale, called the Undertale Suite, and to put that half an hour work music put together in one foul swoop with those musicians was just phenomenal. I don't mind admitting that a week or 2 beforehand we were thinking, this is really, you know, tough stuff. This is going to work together, and boy did it work. And then at the very end we put on Fred's amazing setting called Themes and Fragmentations that really stretches the orchestra to the limit. And right from the very first note you thought, this is just, I mean, what is... Okay, so here I am standing in front of about 70 or 80 musicians. We're playing this fantastic music. We've got a composer in the audience loving it. We're playing to 400, 500 people. What is there not to love about that? And you know, they think that I do a terrific job, and all I do is stand, shout, wave my backside at the audience, take a bow, and they think I've done really well.
Oh my gosh. Alright, so best part, full half-hour orchestra suite, okay? Got it, guys? We need more half-hour suites.
Yes, yes. Well, we're thinking about, we're thinking about a lot of things about how to move the orchestra forward. And one of the things that's going through our mind is that was such a success, we want to carry on doing that.
Yes.
But also, we understand that many people want to hear a variety of different music from a variety of different games and a variety of different styles. And the best way to do that is to put on a succession of shorter numbers, say 5 to 10 minutes.
Sure.
So what we're hoping to do is keep both strands going in the future by putting on concerts of varying different styles, various different attitudes, really.
Yeah, and that's a good seg into our next thing that I wanted to ask you about was, so where does our music come from? Oh, that was a fancy move. It occurs to me that we talk about arrangements quite a bit on this channel, but we've never really actually broken down the process of how our music comes to be selected or how it is chosen. And if you could give us an overview on how the arrangement selection process works and how we get our pieces from start to finish.
Well, let's be clear about this. I can't go down to the local music store and say, okay, here's a sheet music arrangement of Gusty Garden, for example. So let's buy that and let's put it on. We can't do that. There are, although there are quite a few GSOs such as ours around the nation, and also now around the world. There's one in Ireland, in Belfast. There isn't enough of significant biomass for it all to be a commercial venture. So what happens is that we have to write and arrange and score our own music. 100% of it is done by members or supporters of the orchestra. And I put together a list of, okay, this is going to be the next program, this is going to be the next concert. So at the moment we're planning for the concerts in November. We're also, believe it or not, already planning for the concerts around next April. You need to have that amount of pre-planning to get all the music ready. And I put together a program, and I think we're going to talk a little bit later on exactly what goes into a program. But I send out this program, I talk with 3 or 4 people in the band, get their advice, they can tell me their opinion, and I say, this is the program, this is what we need, and they can say, okay, well, I already know of somebody who's working on such and such arrangements which will fit that particular need that you have, or they'll say, we don't really have a vocal solo, just for the sake of argument at the moment, so we'll put out feelers out to the listserv of arrangers that we run, saying, we want this, this is the deadline, these are the sort of parameters that you need to follow, please go and write. We had a meeting only last weekend about these 2 concerts I was talking to you about. And through all of that, the process I've just talked about, we have about 80% of the music for our next program sorted out. And depending on a theme and variations that we're very keen to get our mitts on, whether that comes through in time, which it should do, we probably have a similar amount already sorted out for our spring concert as well. So the arrangers, they're all amateur musicians. Well, actually I shouldn't say they're all amateur musicians, that's not true, but the vast majority of them are amateur musicians who have maybe played their own instrument but nothing else, and they sat in an orchestra or in some concert band if they're playing clarinet or whatever, and they really don't know how to write for violin, let alone how to score for a whole symphony orchestra and chorus of over 80 people. So they'll put together whatever they do, and they'll send it out to the community, to that list that I was talking about, and they will get feedback, always positive feedback and ideas of, well, that's great, but this doesn't quite work out because you can't play that note on a piccolo, for example. Or this note doesn't work out because you're asking the trumpet player to play for 10 solid minutes on the top C, and he's going to be just completely shattered. I know
that a lot of feedback that I've heard come from Joe is actually from percussion as well, and that's probably even less of something that someone is familiar with writing with. If you yourself are not a percussionist, is you actually have a lot to think about in terms of what percussion is doing, because it's not just a snare drum keeping time, it's not just a bass, it's there's so much other stuff that's happening back there that's being run by 4 or 5 people at a time. It's a lot to think about.
Well, I mentioned when I talked about my own background, my own history, that once I left Hendon, band, I did some conducting, and then I went back into playing, and I played with a few bands in Yorkshire, including Meltham Mills, which is I think gone through its 150th anniversary recently. It's been going around for so many years. With Carl Main Frickley, with Yorkshire Imperial Metals Band. These are bands that your listeners won't know, but just take it as read that these are great bands. I did not play with them with a brass instrument. I played in them all on a percussion instrument. Because what happened was I was composing, and I was in exactly the same place. I didn't know what to write, and you know what really got to me finally? I was playing horn once, and they had a guest conductor in, and this was a guest conductor of some repute. And he looked at the percussion and said, I don't know anything about you, you just do whatever you need to do. Just do your bit, I'm sure you'll be fine.
Oh my God.
And I just thought that apart from the fact that you don't say that in front of a set of musicians, it's also terribly demoralizing. I thought, you know what, sometime I'm going to go back to conducting. I don't want to be that man. I want to understand. So I took lessons. And as a result, I'm not a great percussionist, but I got to understand not only the theory, which we can all learn from Walter Piston's excellent book on orchestration, or many composers have written books on orchestration. We can learn a certain amount from that. We can learn a certain amount from studying. I've talked about how when I was 17 having to study the score of Jim Drontis. But that's not the same as being able to play it. I mean, ask yourself, what is it? Do you sing soprano or alto?
I sing soprano too.
All right, so you know that you can tell if somebody's is a chorister when they're writing for when they're not. They understand the theories, the notes that you can sing, but they often get basic things like, where exactly am I going to find that note for my entry from? And the orchestra's playing completely different key, scale, chord, anything you want to mention. So in percussion, I learned a number of things. I learned about the physical side of what works, what doesn't work, about the choreography that works. They're one of the most tightly knit and best managed teams in most orchestras, because they have to be able to move around. You never know from one piece to the next. Now it's true in professional symphony orchestra, the timpani player won't touch the rest of percussion and vice versa. But with GSO, every percussionist needs to be able to play every other instrument. Of course, he or she will have some specialities. They'll be better at keyboards, they'll be better at kit, they'll be better at timpani. But they need to be able to move around and cover everybody else's backside. So that sort of thing, Lee, our section leader for the percussion, he's on the arrangers list, and also music gets sent out to him amongst all the other section leaders and saying, okay, well, Trace has just submitted this piece of music which has got percussion, does it work? And he doesn't have to say, we have the players who can play it, or we have the players in terms of numbers or the instruments. That's really not relevant. That comes back to something I'll talk about perhaps a little bit later if we talk about what I think the conductor does. His job is to say, this is practical, this is impractical, because you're asking somebody to play a note which doesn't exist on the instrument, or you're asking to play something which is so technically demanding, you're only going to be able to get Evelyn Glennie to be able to play it.
Right. And then there's the challenge of, you can have all of that, this works, this is logical, makes logical sense, but then it'll be played, and maybe there'll be new challenges that you never anticipated, or just you have no idea what it's going to sound like.
Right.
So, all right. Well, I've given up on the cookie. Now I'm gonna do the manta ray surfing. I'm also terrible at this one, but let's see how far we got. Not very far. Okay. Now we got another question. When are we going to be graced by a Nigel Horn arrangement?
That really put me on the spot. I admit that I started to write something and things got away from me, and I've not looked at it for some time. It is just a set of sketches.
Gotcha.
And a set of sketches that really need each of the. First, I should say what a sketch is. A sketch is like a storyboard in film. You've got a snippet of it. You've got another snippet. You've got another snippet. Some of them are just 2 or 3 notes or a harmonic progression. Some of it may be a whole set of music, 60 bars or whatever it may be. Most of what I've got so far is pretty much in the former camp, or if it's in the latter camp, it really goes nowhere. So it sits by itself, okay, but putting it in terms of the bigger picture is something that I haven't yet to do.
One of these days.
Maybe one of these days. I think that I think our vice president and librarian would probably need to lean on me.
Well, they asked me the same question.
Really? Okay.
And
it was actually the vice president who gave me the idea of the piece of music to do, and a set of variations that I would write on it. It's getting it. I tell you what the problem is. It's finding the time.
Sure.
To be able to turn into something which I know would work really well with the orchestra and really well with the audience. And unfortunately, I don't have at the moment the time, and I'm also a little bit stuck on where to go. And it's a thing that all composers and all writers have to do. There's a point when you have to scribble it out and say that doesn't work. And I'm probably getting quite to that stage yet. But really, it comes down to time more than anything else. I'm sorry, that's a pretty weak excuse.
Well, it's interesting that you say doing a themes and fragmentations, because we've had a couple pieces that were like that were not just straight up medleys, but were taking a main theme and then playing with it, and then like one piece is one certain kind of style or genre, and not a lot of professional groups that do video game music do that. Usually it will be like the direct lift or adaptation, like, okay guys, here's Mario.
Right.
Alright, and here's Zelda. And now, Chrono Trigger, just what you wanted, just what you were expecting. So like, it's usually the greatest hits, and it's usually very straightforward presentations of those games as well. And that's what, at least I really like about this group, is that there's so much experimentation.
Absolutely, right.
And so much just like, okay, so we have, what people expect from a video game concert, but what if we tried something new? And I don't think there's a single person who's like, no, we have to do it exactly note to page, picture perfect.
Well, it's moved away from them. When we first started, I think the orchestra did do more of those, and don't get me wrong, they work really well, but they moved away more into concept pieces, I would say. So my set of variations on the Guile theme, which so Joe said, there's a running joke that it will go with any piece of music. And he said, I was thinking about doing something. I said, well, that's great. Do you mind if I just pinch your idea? Because plagiarism is always a good thing. So so I don't think he said yes to it, but I did it anyway. Except I've not done it anyway. So what I've got, just so you know, is I've got the theme at the end, and I've got 4 or 5 variations before it in my mind. What I want to do. Some of those variations I've got quite well. The fugue is quite full in place. The second variation, which is the battle scene one, is just going nowhere. I probably need to put a red pen against that and write and scribble it out, because I've got about 8 bars done, and that's about all I can do. The introduction, the basics of the introduction is there. It just needs to be turned into something a little bit more rounded.
Gotcha. Well, we will be very excited when you finish it and present it in front of our stands at rehearsal one night, and we'll give it a try.
Well, maybe it needs to get through librarian, through the VP. It needs to get through the section leaders. It needs to get through the Rangers list. It needs to go through a lot of people, which of course sounds daunting if you've never written, if you've never arranged before. But actually, all those people are wanting you to succeed. They're wanting you to help you and give the benefit of the experience. It's important. We have 2 or 3 people who are extremely prodigious in what they write. It's a lot of stuff, and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
But what I don't want is for people who've never tried to be therefore daunted. All of those people who have written a lot of music, like Jamin, for example, like Chris, for example, Rob as well, all those guys, I think I can, don't think they'll mind me speaking for them if I say they would be more than over the moon to say to other people, please write. You know, this is the mistakes I made, learn from my mistakes.
Sure. The very first stream we did was with our president Ayla, who talked about her experience doing that, and she, you know, written no music before, had, you know, was a singer like me, didn't know how to write for different instruments or different percussion, but she just said, you know what, let's just do it, and you know, then learned and built from there. So that's what we do.
They are indeed prestigious too, to be frank, but that was not the word I was looking for. That's why that other word, which they definitely are, is what came into my mind. So how do we help? How do we help these? Well, what we started to do is put together a set of arrangers workshops. These were started by Jason and by me, working together, and Jason very much spearheaded getting everything together on this. It was fantastic organising, and we would do various things where we would talk about the specific questions that arrangers may have, about general questions, about how to get started, about the masterclass, for example. And since Jason has left, Jamin has taken that over, and he's doing a fantastic job with that. If it's truth be told, we need to be thinking about what we'll be doing next. Now, the most recent ones, they are on YouTube. We ought to put a link on here somewhere.
Ooh, she's something around,
Yes, somewhere around the link of the talks that we gave more recently. Some of the early ones, I'm afraid, were not recorded. So, for example, an early one I gave, as much as anything, it wasn't me by myself. Perhaps I give the wrong opinion by saying, wrong impression by saying I gave. But about 3 or 4 of them, but I gave the first one to try to set the ball rolling. And what I did was I used the 1812 Overture as an example of a piece of music that's most people know, and although it admittedly doesn't have chorus, it uses a fairly modern orchestra. Okay, sure, it's written in the 19th century, but fairly modern orchestra. Battle music, which is something we did a lot of at the time. Cannons and bells and the whole lot, that's right. And I wanted to say, this is what Tchaikovsky would do. This is how he would take a simple melody, the melodies that were given to him, the Russian folk tune, the French national anthem, for example, and he would weave the two together. So these were the compositional techniques that he would have. And in terms of the orchestration, this is how you would have literally one team battling against another. For example, the woodwinds battling against the strings, so that when you come to arranging or composing or in some way writing for an orchestra, you want to be familiar with each instrument, which you can learn from a book, but you could also be really familiar by playing a large number of them, or by speaking with or hanging out with people who play with them. You then, in the building blocks, come together with sections. And the major sections of an orchestra are the strings, the woodwind, brass, percussion, and we're also blessed by having a chorus as well. And then within each of the, as all the sections, I should say, come together, you get the whole orchestra as one. How does it blend? How do the tone colours balance? How do the forces balance and sound off against each other? So that's the sort of thing that sounds like a terribly daunting and a frightening task, and it's perfectly true to say that you can just simply have a career as an orchestrator. And many people in Hollywood who do that. I'm no expert on the Hollywood music scene, but I once heard it, saw it written down that composers simply write simple things on piano scores. They give it to an orchestrator, who then goes out and turns that music into the fine piece of music that we might be hearing. and that we have in our minds. So orchestration can be a skill of its own, and even some of the masters will be sometimes less than great with their standard orchestration and understanding of instruments. So there's all these things that can put a lot of people off, but there's a lot of self-help groups, as it were, within the orchestra, both informal in terms of listservs and formal as in occasional gets together and talking about them. And what I also hope in time is that we can get a sort of supra group above the orchestra, and through other GSOs start to share ideas and share skill sets as well. There is a GSO Founders Circle group on Facebook where we share a few ideas, but it would be great if we were to share other ideas about what works well, what music works well, what performance works well.
Yeah, and especially because a lot of it does seem to be like kind of flying by seat of our pants kind of thing. So like, okay, well, we're doing this all by trial and error, so having that support network. And we're getting some notes in the chat about small ensemble season, and yeah, that's one thing. We've talked a little bit about this in the stream before. We have our main performers, which is a ensemble of 60 plus people with the full choir, full orchestra, and then we also have as kind of don't mind me, I'm just rolling around this big ball. I'm going to be a little while. And we also have side groups that we call the small ensemble showcase that we'll do as part of our concerts we have in the summer, that will feature groups of 4 or 5 people, sometimes less, sometimes just 1, sometimes 2, doing, really it's the same kind of variety that you hear in our full concerts, but they're for smaller people, because we get, the game canon has so much that is so wide and vast, but not all of it is suited for a symphonic orchestra. Like, I can't imagine doing the piece that we do from Bastion, Build That Wall, which is a singer and a guitar, with 60 people. I mean, let's try it, sure, but I don't know if it would be the same. The small ensemble showcase is indeed a set of, or a season would be the word I'm looking for, of concerts, Black Rock, for example, Black Rock Arts Centre, where groups of the orchestra can get together and say, I want to write, or I want to perform such and such a piece. Without a conductor, I'm sorry to say, except for once I got roped in once. And it's just wherever people think, oh, this would be really cool to be able to do this. And the good thing about this is we can get everything from rock groups, which you've taken part in, all the way through to recorder groups, and everything in between. From all the tone colours you'll be looking for. And also, I've been keen on including a couple of chamber music groups with our main concerts as well. But we don't call them small ensemble showcases, we call them chamber ensembles, but they've started to make a regular spot in with the full orchestra concerts, and that's gone down well. We've had a lot of positive feedback from both within the orchestra and outside of the orchestra with the audience as well, that we should pursue that idea. I will say within that, the programming, like we could absolutely fill a small ensemble showcase with just singer and guitar, or singer and piano, or just piano, you know, or just like one instrument. So I feel like finding variety there can be super challenging. I'm sure our librarian and small ensemble manager could weigh in as well, but finding a varied program that's as interesting to listen to as a program for the full orchestra is, it just fascinates me that there are a lot of ways it could all sound the same. There are a lot of ways that it could sound, you know, let's go the safer route. Okay, that's a hill.
So perhaps, if I may, I can segue now on how to put a program together.
Sure, absolutely.
We talked a little bit earlier about the fact that we were starting to showcase these larger items. We talked about themes and fragmentations, we talked about the Undertale suite, and there is a sniff on the horizon of a set of theme and variations. when it comes to a program, over the years, both with the orchestra and beforehand, with the bands that I've conducted, I've been able to hit upon a formula which is pretty simple, and I like to think works pretty well, and it's one that I use with the orchestra, and it's like this. It's mostly outwards in. You start, for example, start the concert with a bang, short, sharp, shock, get everybody into the real mood of it. It's going to be 2-3 minutes long, it's going to have everybody in it, it's going to be loud, it's going to be fast, it's going to get everybody excited. At the very other end of the concert, there'll be a longer piece. By longer, we could be talking 8-10 minutes, which will start around forte, for example. Forte is the musical word for loud. We like speaking in Italian because it sounds like we know what we're doing. Instead, what we're doing is really blinding people with science. And then the bit in the middle will be a little bit quiet, or sort of mezzo piano, piano. That means soft, moderately soft. And then it ramps itself up until a big climactic moment. All guns blazing like 1812, all the cannons going. You should include that in the orchestration next. And that's how you finish the concert. So we've got there the beginning and end of the concerts, and work ourselves in. The second piece will be not dissimilar from the piece that you finish with. There'll be a major length. If you're going to have a major length concert which explores different tone colors, explores different textures, explores different moods, that's where it's going to be. The cerebral piece, as it were, is going to be there. It's going to get people thinking about the music, it's going to get people thinking about the sounds that they hear, it's going to get people thinking about how this is being put together and how it's being performed. After that, the third item, I like to put a solo item on. Solo item is usually, but not exclusively, a vocal solo item, normally with a diminished orchestra. So by diminished I mean maybe no brass, maybe no percussion, but it could be them all. And there are several reasons for this. One is it gives a break to some of the players. They're not playing, they need a break after that second piece I was talking about. Another reason is it gives a chance to showcase a keen soloist. A third reason is visual rather than audio. It gives the audience something completely different to look to on the stage. They'll look into some person, or perhaps two people, standing up.
Sure.
So this is where we've got, this is very important to vary the overall sound. This is one of the plans that we do to do that, by moving away from a full orchestra and moving it into a soloist environment. The end of the first half will always be a short showstopper to get everybody hyped up for the half time. The other pieces that form the first half will be whatever slots in. The only rules I'm following, I want to have at least one piece which is not full orchestra. So something which is strings only, for example, would be really awesome. A few years ago, if you remember, a few seasons ago, we did Jib Jig, if you remember.
Yes, that was from Donkey Kong.
That was for strings alone, and I was very happy to program that. For that reason alone, it gave a completely different sound, a completely different mood to the concert. I like to have slower numbers and faster numbers, some numbers featuring different instruments, and also, of course, featuring different games. And finally, in terms of juxtaposition, you don't want two pieces next to each other in the same mood, hopefully not in the same key, not the same tempo, not the same game. So that's the first half pretty much programmed. The second half slots into this sort of formula. I've talked about how it finishes. Before that, there may be another shorter item as well, 4 or 5 minutes, that will fit in to that. Before that, then going back to the beginning of the second half, the second half starts with a cappella piece by the choir. Again, for all the reasons I mentioned earlier, for variety, for rest and rest and what's the word I'm looking for here?
Relaxation.
Thank you. rest and relaxation.
All right.
For the instrumentalists, it gives the choir a chance to really showcase themselves. And I'll let Jacob, I invite Jacob, the chorus master, to take that item. We then have a couple of carefully selected chamber music pieces. We've used anything and everything from a wind quartet through to a rock group like I was talking about earlier, and just about anything in between.
The most unique one we've had was, oh gosh, I really loved having one of our string players, Victor, is a gifted whistler. And speaking of things that you rarely hear in a professional orchestra, someone who whistles is it's such a joy, such a treat. So,
well, that comes into one of the things I listen for when I'm trying to choose the chamber music pieces is that they must be as different as possible from the rest of the program, in outlook and in the way that they would showcase the musicianship of the members of the orchestra. So Victor, for example, whistling that was a perfect example of something which was very different from the rest. Both, again, visually as well as what you'll listen to, and the mood and everything is very different. And it was very well received, from what I recall.
And then Amanda, who was one of our soloists at our recent concert, says singing opera using a mic was an experience for sure. Well, Amanda, you are wonderful.
Yes,
Don't you
indeed
dare
you
sell
are,
yourself
yes.
short.
Yes, yes.
Alright, so I need to get these bombs here to hit this thing, that thing, and then the other thing. You want to come over here? Come on, buddy. Come on, buddy. You did it! Now we get this. I like to think it's actually chocolate and you just take the gold wrapper off. And earlier on, talk about our small ensemble setup. Katie, who's our small ensemble coordinator, pays attention to varied sound and asks for people to find right things with sound she thinks is missing. So if there are too many strings, look for a woodwind heavy piece. And is that a similar approach you take as well?
Yes, it is. Variety of everything is important. And think of the things that you do need to have variety in. I've mentioned quite a few of them, and it's very important to me to show. Let me put it again this way. What is the mission of the WMGSO? I think I can put this succinctly when I can say that there are two things that WMGSO does. It introduces live music to the gamer, and it introduces video game music to the live music concert goer. And looking at the demographics of people who attend our concerts, we ask them to fill in the questionnaire. Our people who turn up are pretty much 50-50 between those two sets of people. So to those people who are there simply, for want of a better word, because we're an orchestra playing a live music concert, we need to show to them the video game music isn't all just Battle of Stuff and Call of Duty, but it is a fine musical genre in its own right. So that's something that's very important for me to be able to do, to show the breadth of the genre as well as the depth of the genre. And so to be able to choose or to show the breadth of the genre, I like to showcase all these different styles of anything and everything you can talk about: speed, tempo, mood, tone color, orchestrations, whatever you would like to mention. That's in my armory as the artistic director to put on. For the video game player who's never been to a live concert, we want to showcase what an awesome, amazing sound human beings who are for whole, not artificially mic'd, can make. Yeah, music is one of the oldest art forms. It's been going around since caveman, and there's a reason for that. It really fires people up. And whilst we may well have moved on a little bit from the caveman time, some will say not as much as others.
Unless we're playing a caveman specific game like in Chrono Trigger, which is all drumming and being in a cave, but we digress.
But then, no, that's fine though. You see, the thing is that we can do something. We coming back to Katie, you've mentioned. We've done. She's had pieces which have involved Japanese drums, and she's great into East Asian instruments as well. I should let on here, or perhaps I shouldn't let on because it's going to put her under pressure. She's writing a piece of music for an instrument that she's learning right now. Don't ask me the name of the instrument; it slipped my mind. But she's probably going to tell us now on the Twitch channel, and then moan at me for forgetting what it is. So it is very important to vary the overall sound. I like to think that that is one of the primary objectives that I have in putting together the program. It's variety not only for the audience but also for the orchestra members who are singing and playing at that time. You don't want them to get bored as well. You want them to be fired up. You want them to have variety. You want them to be looking forward to the next piece of music, to the next rehearsal, to the next season.
It's interesting you mentioned wanting to people who are gamers who may not necessarily experience a classical music concert. Like, this is as much for them as it is for anyone else. I feel like nowadays you may not even hear an orchestra unless you go to the movies, or unless you say play a video game, and a lot of people kind of poo-poo that.
Hold on, quiet. Sounds a bit orchestral. This is going on now. See?
Hey.
There you go. Sorry, carry on.
That's fine.
In.
Yeah, like, actually, our mod Amelia said earlier on that this game got her into video game music.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so... Oh, now I'm invincible. That's cool. Look at my rainbow tail. I can't see where I'm going. And then put some... Do you find yourself... I mean, I guess it is a balance in terms of, wanting to, mentioning all those different groups, wanting them to be as invested. But do you think that any one in particular is favored? Maybe do you think that we look at, because we want everyone to come, of course, but is there one demographic in particular that we're trying to appease or to
I certainly hope not. I really hope not. Of course, it's a cliche. You cannot please all of the people all of the time. But it's very much my job description to please all of the people, some, or better still, most of the time. So, am I always aiming, or do I consciously aim for a specific part of the audience? The simple answer to that is no. At least I hope not. And if it comes over as if I am, or if the program looks like it is, then the good news is we've got a lot of people around who will advise me and saying, I think this program was a bit too battle heavy, or a bit too chorus heavy, or a bit too whatever it may be.
Well, hi, buddy. You're very upset. This is the ammo department. Toss their trash here and magically disappear. We have plenty of bombs. We could use them to blow up all this trash. Oh yeah, and then we have a couple of...
You ought to have a vote, actually, from all the people who are watching, whether you should do it or not.
Well, I said yes. Let's see how we're doing. We got a couple other people saying what games inspired them to get into game music. Got Sonic 3, Chrono Trigger. We've done a couple pieces from Chrono Trigger. Can I just put it down? I have to throw it. Put it down. It's not gonna, no. Oh, I see what I have to do, okay. Let's try this again. You gotta do it faster! Later. I feel like helping right now.
You gotta do it faster. Sounds like a line from me for one of the rehearsals.
Oh, okay, now I went to the trash. I want to leave, you can use the bathroom. Let's try one more time. You want to blow up all this trash for me? Well, yeah, sure. That's my job here. That's me, Mario. Let's see, I'm gonna get there. And Zanet's saying Icewind Dale was first that she noticed as a separate soundtrack. I think for me, oh man.
Have we done anything from Icewind Dale? I do not recognise the name of the game.
Neither do I. It's not one I'm familiar with either. Probably was Final Fantasy. Like a lot of people, the Final Fantasy VII is kind of like their first major intro into into video game music. I think nowadays you're more likely to hear at least orchestral video game music, like you mentioned Call of Duty before, like and Halo and like the major shooter games. Yeah. Stuff that we would be like, yes, this is epic game music kind of thing. In smaller games, you're far less likely to hear classical acoustic instruments unless you happen to have a lot of money or you know people. Like there's this one teeny tiny game that I saw that was called Gathering Sky. Then they were fully orchestrated by this beautiful quintet, and then I looked in the credits, and they actually had commissioned a music conservatory to do their music for them.
That's wonderful.
It was really interesting, but I was just like, not everybody has those resources, you know. So usually it's just like, you know, the one person who's the programmer, also sound designer, also level designer, doing music as well. Like that, Chris has talked about his own struggles in his professional life as well.
Well, that's what we're trying to achieve, though, isn't it? You see, how trying to show that the music, in its own right, video game music in its own right, is a great art form. I like to think that it's the latest in a move, a line of music. For example, we talked very briefly about a Baroque opera earlier. And if you think about opera is, at its most basic level, is simply a play set to music. It's really just a play. Normally a ridiculous play with a stupid plot line that people don't understand, but it doesn't matter because you go there to listen to the fantastic singing. But so an opera is I look at it like this, at one of its basic level is a play with musical accompaniment. So as we've moved away, as opera was extremely popular in the 19th century, late 19th century in Italy. So it has got replaced by other forms. Music moved away, has been accompaniment to other forms. Films is the obvious example to me. Yes, okay, there have always been film music around. With Gone with the Wind, everybody knows the music of that. And that's what, in the 30s that was done. And there's music from let's think of 2001, which is actually not specifically written. It was Stanley Kubrick said, I quite like that album, let's just have that piece of music on. But the music is almost like a silent actor, an unnamed actor. It's very important. I think it's fantastic how you have Vangelis at the beginning setting the mood, and that. Now, in hindsight, who can think of something less perfect than the simple Blue Danube and the first space scene?
Right, yeah.
And when you think about it, that space scene goes on forever and ever. There's no dialogue, there's no nothing. All that's happening is that this spaceship is going to dock. These days it would be, okay, where's the explosion? What's happening? But in the 1960s, with people just in all these effects, and the Blue Danube was just an amazing choice.
No, it was very quiet in the way that a lot of what we have codified as like space adventure isn't really anymore.
Well, Star Wars, for example.
Yeah, and in games, there's a fair amount of that. There's like, you have most notably Mass Effect being an extremely bombastic but beautiful game, but it's very busy, you know, very loud and extremely like tension building.
I'm never bombastic when I'm Commander Shepard.
No. You're the consular, you're talking to everybody.
Yes, I'm a diplomatic style.
I just went guns blazing. Yep, I'm in a close fire fired. I have a sniper rifle. What are you going to do about it?
So films, well, music. Let's just take Star Wars as an example. This is clearly what I'm about to say is not true, but I think it's good to use as a good way of focusing the mind. Before Star Wars, music was incidental in many great films where you forget the music.
Sure.
Okay, yeah, so we talk about 2001, and I think the music from The Big Country and The Magnificent Seven, those westerns of the 60s, was just amazing. You listen to The Big Country, you close your eyes, and you know it's a western that's coming on, and it's a fantastic tune and orchestration. Everything works well in that. But it was, I would say that Star Wars was the big in my thesis that I have no proof for. It was the first big one, because what they did was they didn't get a set of session musicians. They paid the London Symphony Orchestra to record this, to play it. It was big, it was epic. The LSO would do concerts on it. The LSO would produce albums just of Star Wars music, and it became integral in a way that after that, I think that we can say music has become very core. Yes, of course, incidental music was very important. The bit from Psycho in the shower scene wouldn't work if they were playing the Blue Danube to that, for example.
There's a really funny YouTube video that's it's just called like Wrong Music or something like that for movies, and my favorite was in Terminator 2, there's an amazing scene where Sarah Connor is looking out at the playground and it's just engulfs in flames, and someone put Celebration over there, and it was like, woohoo! And then it was really funny.
So the choice of music, incidental music, is of course important, and it creates the mood, because you can have the same scene can be happy, terrifying, suspenseful, thoughtful by the presence or absence of whatever sort of music. But the point that I'm trying to get here is that Star Wars almost made the music to be a form in its own right. That beforehand, yes, you had the great theme musics, but they weren't necessarily seen to be an art form in their own right. Since then, we could start to name some of the composers, which we couldn't do, I suspect, from beforehand. I have no idea now who wrote Magnificent Seven. Do you? But we all know who wrote the music to Star Wars.
Right.
Okay, and Jurassic Park, and also it's not only big music like that and big science fiction films like that. The music has now become an important art. So you can go out there. Modern composers. If you are a what's the word I'm looking for? A classical serious composer. You're often going to write for the movies. That's where you're going to make the money. We talked a little bit earlier about how we're going to make the money. Now, I talked about English composers a bit earlier. One of the ones I didn't mention, Ralph Vaughan Williams, he did write music for the British film industry. That is how he makes some money. But that's not how we primarily remember him. Those of you think of John Williams, that is exactly what you're going to think of him for. So why have I started to talk about this? It's this. I think video games has the potential of being the next theme music, where the music in itself, the next movie music, where the music in itself can take on an art form, can be important, can stand alone, and it is one of the jobs of WMGSO and other GSOs to explore that possibility, to take it out of, to do what the LSO did, take it out of the theatre, or in our case, take it out of the home game system and put it into a concert setting, because the music has moved on so well that it actually can do that. And it's our job to demonstrate and to evangelise that it can do that to those set of people that I was talking about that go to live music concerts are maybe going to Wolf Trap, which is just down the road from us.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't necessarily go along and hear that. Of course, now we find that that's not true. You know, as we've led the way, so other groups are coming along. I'm not here talking about video games live. I'm talking about just up the road from here. The Baltimore Symphony Orchestra has done Games Night.
Yeah.
There are a couple of albums recorded by the world-class London Philharmonic Orchestra, which I've got, and they're in fact coming back to Gusty Garden. They've got a great arrangement of Gusty Garden on there. So, Civ 6.
Yes.
The music to Civilization 6, the composer from that, you can find him on YouTube conducting a slightly small, reduced orchestra, but full-size choir from the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra up in Belfast, and it's stunning to watch. And it's shown how it'll all, how it's become mature enough to be able to work in that concert setting.
Sure, sure.
It's not as if GSO, WMGSO or other ones like put on a couple of concerts, okay, we've used up all the material, the good stuff, that's the end, bye.
Yeah, we have from ZD Major, I'd argue that the Final Fantasy Zelda oeuvre is already there, but spread only as much as the publisher companies themselves sponsor them. And we're in the vanguard for the rest of it. And it's interesting that you mentioned sponsorship there, because Nintendo in particular does not particularly care for fan works, it seems, or for fan productions. And, whoa, that's a bear. Let's jump on his head.
Talking Nintendo.
Yeah. It's like there's, on YouTube, if someone is doing a cover of something like that, they're like, no, so shut that down kind of thing. But on the other hand, we get some composers who are super open, or like, yeah, here are the rights to this, here are, like, I want to come, tell me when it's happening, sort of thing. So it's just super interesting that we get this kind of varied support, I suppose, from the original creators themselves.
Yes, indeed, yes. Well, I've never actually spoken to any, but of course we've got plenty of people who have spoken to them, and I would assume that the feedback is they are so pleased that a full orchestra of our calibre is putting this on, instead of them sitting in front of a MIDI keyboard and a few sounds.
Some composers have flat out contributed to fan albums. Yeah, that's true. It's really, it just fascinates me how, oh, no, that's not what I wanted. Just the reaction to, and I guess that's just sort of a larger conversation about fan works in general, but music in particular seems to be just, it is so intensely personal, And it is so, woo! Now is so integral to what we consider a video game. Like, I don't think we'll ever have a game that is just perfect silence and sound, Right. I mean, we'll have moments, of course, where there is quiet and where there is, maybe the story is trying to, say something very significant by not including music or not including, a lot of sound at the time, but it's still very much, they're entwined. Like, we have movies that have no sound, or not sound, but no music. They're really, really way out there. Like, we have The Birds, we have All Is Lost, and that's like, people think that is just so weird. Can't imagine a game being made with no music at all.
So that comes back to what I was saying about the films. You wouldn't want to go and watch a film without any music.
Right.
Just simply actors talking. Even before the process of adding sound was invented, you had to have a piano going on in the background.
That's true, yeah.
There was sitting in the flicks and watching that.
There was always somebody. You're right, it was usually a piano player with the silent movies.
Yes.
Playing, I think. Oh, one of the coolest things I ever did was I saw a showing of The General, the Buster Keaton movie, with a live organist. And
really?
It was really neat. So it wasn't like the track that they put in later for like a DVD release. No, it was like the actual cut of the film. And
it was meant to be.
Yeah, it was really cool. Yes?
And I heard actually that this is getting a bit off topic, but I will share this anyway because I think it's quite interesting. That a piece of music by Shostakovich was being recorded performed, I should say, for the first time in many, many years, because it was a piece of music he wrote as backing for a silent film that was then, I believe, some of it was banned in the Soviet Union. So he said, okay, well, this music isn't going to be performed until the whole of the film can be seen again. Now the film can be seen again, so the whole of this piece that he wrote as a backing to the silent film is now performed. I wish I could remember the name of the film. Something I caught on the radio a couple of months ago.
Very cool. Let's head down. Don't you throw that at me.
So, can I answer one of these
sure,
points? I think there's certainly nothing wrong with medleys of famous stuff. There's also nothing wrong with pieces of music being based on one game or one scene from a game. So, Walt Horner, my answer to that is what we're trying to do is trying to do lots of different things. It's that variety I was talking about earlier. So that'll include medleys, and it includes speciality, for want of a better word.
The one thing I don't know if we'll ever do, though, is a pure like chiptune or 8-bit kind of concert. Like, we'll usually adapt it for acoustic instruments. I don't know if that's in our wheelhouse, the kind of thing where it's like a purely electronic soundtrack. We will try to exactly replicate that 8-bit sound and style in our full performances. You know, like, I don't think we'll have a guy with a MacBook and a synthesizer, as it were.
The sound might be quite tricky, but I'm pretty sure we have people who are listening to 8-bit audio tracks and turning those into orchestrated pieces of music. Yes, we do.
A full concert would be too much. Don't see why. There could be a chiptune trio. Maybe one of these days.
I also put it to you that on a recent concert, what we did was we had this little area outside where we had some retro games.
That's right, it was our game gallery.
That's it, yes. So you could get to hear some of the games in their music, I should say, in their original environment there.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that's the sort of thing we'll be able to carry on as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Maybe we can have like a listening station or something. We'll have some headphones. That'd be cool.
Yes.
And we got a question. Are you excited for the growth of WMGSO for its potential for larger venues?
Yes. Next question.
That's,
well, one of the things is
a big challenge.
It is one of the big challenges. There are many. It's a difficult question to answer, and you can probably see by this, because my short answer is obviously yes, and obviously yes, people want to do that. Everybody wants to do that, as far as I'm aware. We've talked about Strathmore, we've talked about the Kennedy Centre, and we've talked about this, and they're not all pipe dreams.
Sure, yeah.
The thing that we need to do is put a realistic aim on when we can get there, what we need to do to be able to get there, and how we can get there. And look, for example, at the Small Ensemble Showcase concert. I'd mentioned this earlier, back at the Black Rock Arts Centre. I think it's a fabulous place up in Gaithersburg, Germantown, one of the two. And I'm hoping that we will be able to continue with concerts like that in venues like that.
Yeah.
There are many positive reasons for the locations that we've been in the past, but we're certainly well aware that we would like to be able to perform in larger venues with a larger audience and with a more substantial presence in these places. How long will it take? Luckily, nobody's holding me or the board of directors to, but it's absolutely on our game plan to be able to do it, and any thoughts on how would be very useful as well.
We're into practical things, like we're just a gigantic ensemble.
It is perfectly true to say that we're getting quite large for some of the places that we go to. I mean, we couldn't, for example, have the whole orchestra go and perform in Living Faith, which was the place where we performed for our first time.
Right. I mean, it's a good problem to have. Like, I hear the board say quite a lot. Let's sell you something helpful for 30-star bits. All right. Which will it be? That.
But the growth can be not just simply potential large venues. The growth can be the standard of the concerts that we're putting on. So more adventurous music, more adventurous styles, more adventurous outlook in the programs that we're putting together, and also raising the bar and the standard of the orchestra generally, which is something that we're very keen on doing through evolution rather than revolution.
Sure.
To be honest with you.
And for that, for you, would that look like more ambitious pieces, or just more challenging, more difficult ones?
Both.
Both.
But let's not forget that we're a community orchestra. Let's not forget that we're not the LSO or the NSO or a bunch of professional musicians. Let's remember the background and that we have in the orchestra. So it is my belief that growth and the potential to use those two words can come very much from within by organically improving the standard of the venue, improving the standard of the orchestra, improving the standard of the music.
Sorry. Oh gosh. Well, we are trucking right along. Do you think we could chat a little bit about how you approach conducting when you are in a live setting, and just kind of how, maybe what goes through your mind during one of our concerts?
I think the job of the conductor is quite simple. I think the job of the conductor is to look at a score and try to consider what it is that the composer has in his or her mind. What is the sound? What are the tone colours? What are the textures? What is, at a high level, what is the message that the music is trying to send? What is the mood? How are you going to get that? And how are you going to get across the audience is the second part, because we then have, so in the first part of the equation is the job of the conductor is to look at the score and decide what he or she thinks the composer wanted to do. The other side of the equation is, where are we? This is how we sound at the moment. This is what we're capable of doing at the moment. And the job of the conductor, I think, in the most simple level, is to reduce the delta between those two. So that what you go on to the concert stage performing will be as close to what's in your mind's ear of what you wanted to hear when you first, well, perhaps not first set eyes on the score, but after you've studied the score for enough time to understand what the music is about. Now, I have one big advantage over many. You know, Mozart, Beethoven are long gone. I can't email them and say, what exactly were you trying to do here? But I can get hold of any of our arrangers and say, is this what you wanted to do? Are we doing a good job? Am I doing a good job? And if the answer to any of those is no, they can tell me, they can guide me on what I need to change, either by myself or with the direction I'm giving to the orchestra, so that we can reduce that difference between what the arranger had in mind and what we're actually doing at the moment. Then hopefully when we get to the concert stage, we will have reduced that down to obviously hopefully to a zero, but if not zero, then to a realistic minimum. Now, as the artistic or musical director of WMGS2, I've got other jobs that I need to do apart from sorting out how we're going to get those differences to disappear. For example, looking at the balance, the tuning, the technical difficulties that we're facing. The other job that I have to do is setting the medium and long-term artistic and musical goal of the orchestra. So I'm more than simply a conductor when it comes to WMGSO. I'm also the musical director. I forget what my exact title is. I think that's what it is. And that's a sort of title, that's the sort of job when you're away from the stage,
Yes.
when you don't have a baton in your hand, you don't have a score in front of you, and you simply have a blank piece of paper, and you're thinking, okay, where do you think this orchestra should be in a year's time, in 5 years' time, in 20 years' time? And at the most recent board meeting, we discussed my thoughts, for example, on where I felt that the board should be, where the orchestra should be in 5 years' time. And we could see if there's agreement or disagreement, and when there was disagreement, well, actually, thankfully, there was very little of that. we could sort that out. And another reason for doing that is to say, look, you are the board, I am responsible to you, I'm accountable to you. Mm-hmm. You know, you've never actually really said to me, what are you doing? You should do, and if you were saying that to me, this is the answer that I would be giving you. So I work with the president, with the board, with the ensemble manager to get all the different, the right-hand side of the equation right. Where the right-hand side of the equation is, have we got the players that we need? Are all the parts covered? Mm-hmm. How is the balance going? How is the rhythmic tightness going? So that ultimately we can get the left-hand side of the equation, which is to have the place where I think the mm-hmm. orchestra should be sounding, how we can get ourselves into that position. Ooh. There are, of course, some day-to-day jobs that you have to do. You have to run the rehearsals, you have to plan the rehearsals, you have to set the repertoire, you have to work with section leaders on concerns that they may have, and work them through with him or her to the best of our ability. There are some day-to-day issues that we do with the ensemble as a whole, with Evan, the ensemble manager, with Ayla, the ensemble president, and I like to think we do a pretty good job with those things.
I think we do too.
So really a conductor's job is quite simple in one sense, although it's quite complicated in another, because you have to what do you have to do? You have to be able to read a score of some 80 musicians, which is going to tell you exactly where, when and what every one of those people is going to be doing at a particular time. Mm-hmm. And you have to understand that, and you have to try to make sure that happens. We're also planning the rehearsal, as I said. So what music have we rehearsed enough? What have we not rehearsed enough? What are people finding difficulties with? So hopefully I get the feedback on where people are getting difficulties with. And some small sectionals will help with those day-to-day problems as well.
Oh. What am I supposed to be doing here?
So I said on one hand it's very hard because you've got to look at all those parts. On another hand it's very hard because you've got to deal with 80 people who are all of extremely different personalities.
Different skill levels as well. Different
skill levels and different expectations from the orchestra. Hopefully they're not so different that you can't reconcile the skill levels, reconcile the expectations, reconcile the personalities. So I think we do a pretty good job of reconciling those problems that one has with 80 people in front of you all wanting something different, all capable of doing something different, and all with a different opinion.
Arg. Yes, you're very upset, we know. Uh-oh. Might be in trouble. Jump on this part. Yes, good job. Alright, you got one more. Come on. What? Where are you going? No! Whoop. Alright, we'll try that one again. Alright, well, we're getting to our last 20 minutes or so. Do you think you could talk a bit about WM Then and Now, and when we began and where we are currently? We talked quite a bit about where we want to be, but what about maybe just kind of our how we came and how we grew to where we are now. Whoa!
So when we started about 4 or 5 years ago, the group was much smaller than it is now. There are photographs somewhere around floating around on the web somewhere, probably on our website, that shows much smaller forces. But even then we had the core of the orchestra that we have now, the germ of the core of the orchestra that we have now. The board was ex-students, alumni of the University of Maryland, and they had played the University of Maryland Gamer Symphony Orchestra. And their goal was to say, okay, we had a great time there, we've all graduated, we all got adult lives, but we don't really want to give up this thing that we found awesomely wonderful. But it's a big undertaking to put together a full orchestra. It's a big undertaking to put it as a set of students. It's much more difficult to do it out in the community as a set of adults. So we rehearsed in Living Faith, which is a church, a Lutheran church on Veers Mill, just outside Rockville in Maryland. And they were kind enough to let us rehearse in their fellowship hall in the basement. And we used music solely, if I remember correctly, from the University of Maryland Gamer Symphony Orchestra.
Sister organization that had a pretty wide library to begin with, of all also very similar setup, all student run and arranged, that they did in-house. But we had no repertoire of our own, like Nigel was saying when we first started, so we borrowed from them.
So some of the goals were, first of all, some of the short-term goals we had then were, first of all, to become self-sufficient when it comes to music. It took us a bit longer than we expected, but I believe we are there now. Another goal was to fill a copiously large number of vacancies that we had at the time. We still have a fair number of vacancies, but it's not as copiously large as it was when it started, which has enabled us to put on pieces with a bigger, encompassing a bigger forces, encompassing a bigger sort of aims and objectives as well. When we first performed about 4 or so years ago, we were small enough to fit on in the area in Living Faith. And we put on a set of music that I think was very well received, and we were very happy with it. And at that time, I don't recall us really setting much in the way of these goals that we've been talking about. So yes, apart from the goal I mentioned that we want to become self-sufficient with music, I can't honestly say that we sat down and said, this is where we want to go. Nigel, these are your directions, turn the orchestra into this. As the orchestra's got going, so more time and effort has been put into place of us continuing the amazing momentum that we've had from those first evenings in September, I suspect it was, through to where we are now and beyond, hopefully. It's been a long story, and yet it's only taken us about 4 years to move from the group that we were of hopefuls to the established community group that we are now. And I think much of that came from the board of directors taking their time. I believe they took about a year or so between first, this would be a great thing to do, till the first rehearsal. So they wanted to get everything right, they wanted to get the paperwork right, they wanted to get the bylaws right, they wanted to make sure that everybody knew what was going to be happening and everything that needed to be in place for licensing of music, for example, as we hinted on, which is much more difficult in an adult world than it is in a student world, that we would be able to get all of that in place and understood before it was started. In fact, me coming on the board, the musical side was the last part that of the jigsaw. Everything else was pretty much in place when I was brought on board. So a few years ago, and I have to look at the pictures, although only about 4 years ago, my memory is of something very different from where we are now. Yeah, surprisingly difficult to describe.
Squeaky. Prankster comments. Move it. Want to move it? Oh. Okay. Did not realize how much of this game was feeding poofy stars candy. Okay, so I think we just opened a new course. Let me try that out a little bit. Is it just me, or is this a really tough game? You want to know what the hard part is? I say this a lot, but I just have a weird spatial orientation thing, and then having the no tactile sensation thing with this controller, which is just very jerky and weird. So already I can't tell where I'm going, and then I can't. Just gonna have to do the best I can. And all right, speedy comment in orbit. What does that mean? Let's take a look at it. Oh, let's try Bowser again. Bowser Star Reactor. We do have to ask any favorite games or pieces that we've performed that stand out to you in particular?
Oh, you know, whatever I answer is going to really put me on the spot. And it's probably always going to be the piece that we played the most recently, just because it's the most fresh in my memory. I think the things that really fire me up are pieces in big scope, like Undertale and Themes and Fragmentations. The pieces which are very moody, like Mist.
Yes.
And there's a piece which Katie arranged, I forget what it was now, with Japanese sounding instruments. I forget what that was now.
That's called Reset, and it's going to be on our stream next week! Oh!
That very moody music like that. And very intimate music like I Am the One. They're the pieces that fire me up the most. So those which are unusual, those which have something different to add, those which are different from the norm, those are the pieces of music that get me going. But it is true to say that every single piece of music we've done has had its own enjoyment, its own great factors that I've gone on with a little bit. If I can answer this point that's also here, I will point out that he arranges the majority of things we've played have been or are current WMGSO members. That is perfectly true. That's I believe that we are now, well, we have been self-sufficient. Self-sufficient, when I say that, I don't necessarily mean that everybody's a current member of WMGC. That is not the case. Themes of Fragmentation, for example, was not arranged by a current member. But it does mean that everything is either internally written or is internally sponsored, so we are now self-sufficient with that. Another question here is, can you comment on what got easier and what got harder since 2014? Goodness me. What's got easier is being able to stand back and not get involved with the nitty-gritties of the music. Being able to stand back and say, this is what this piece of music is all about. This is where this piece of music is going. In other words, to direct less and conduct more. What's got harder since 2014? I think that's a really tough question. I'll tell you what's got harder. The questions have got harder. What's got harder since 2014? I really don't know. Help me out here, Tracy. Give me some prods. Give me some thoughts here.
Seems kind of harder. Well, I mean, apart from the people wrangling aspect, I suppose, you know, we have more people.
That's just because there's a large number of people. Yeah. That's fine.
That's fine. People wrangling, cat wrangling, dog herding, fine.
Well, dog people aren't allowed in the orchestra. That's easily dealt with. Only cat people are allowed in the orchestra.
Easier and harder. I mean, we definitely have upped the difficulty of our pieces, and we have, at least for me, we are focusing a lot more. And I mean, the reason I say people has been something that's gotten harder is because it just means more skill levels to anticipate and more, you know, like you were saying about personalities, so just more to bring together into that cohesive whole. Harder fitting entire group on the stage, absolutely.
That's unfortunately why going back to F. Scott Fitzgerald is so difficult for us. But has the music got more ambitious? Yes, but at the same time, the ability of the orchestra has risen. So that's why I didn't say, oh, that's something that's got harder since 2014, because in my opinion, the two have gone hand in hand. I mentioned this earlier. This is not disparaging to the group that met in 2014. I promise you this is not. But that group couldn't have tackled some of the stuff we're doing now if for no other reason we didn't have the numbers of people.
Woo! We're finding a venue that can fit all of our fans. Yes, very true.
Let's hopefully we'll get to that place very soon. The most recent was we had a few empty seats, but not that many. F. Scott Fitzgerald that I mentioned earlier, we performed there twice. Both times we had to turn people away because it could not fit in. But if I may just put in a plug, and you've not given me any time to do that, I shall be back there on the 24th of June conducting two other groups in a joint concert. Conducting the Rockville Brass Band, the North American champion band of the second section, and I shall also be conducting Brass Potomac, which is the local championship section band made out of primarily made out of service musicians. So actually I'll be back there again and seeing if two bands, because there's going to be a couple of masked items. We're going to be performing Fanfare for Fenway by John Williams with all the musicians. There's going to be about 60 musicians on stage. That's going to be crazy, trying to get them all to fit. So that's going to be fun. So if anybody's interested in hearing a completely different side of me, please come along. F. Scott Fitzgerald, 7 o'clock, 24th of June.
All right. Okay, let's see if I can get Bowser defeated in our last 10 minutes here. Wah, 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 wah. Wah, wah, wah. Look at that determined mustache.
I think if I were to say in terms of the music getting more ambitious, the standard surely is getting more hard, but a lot of it is the pieces of music are getting longer, and therefore people's stamina is having to become an issue. And careful writing has helped us a lot on that. Using instruments where stamina isn't so much of an issue, for example, strings, a lot compared with those where it is an issue, for example, brass.
Oh, where'd you go? That's true. It's a different set of skills blowing air into an instrument than it is holding on. Not to say that it doesn't take stamina to play a wind instrument, but I want to say, I can't think of the last time we did a piece that was like 2 odd minutes long or so.
Then you can't remember us playing Joe's Overwatch.
Yeah. That's right. Because
which was about 90 seconds long. That's true, the choir were not involved in that. It was about 90 seconds long. That was our fanfare sort of concert opener. For our performance at Super SmashCon last year, Jane and Morden put together a fanfare specifically for that concert. It was about 32 measures long, if my memory serves me correct.
So in that case, I guess we'll have some concert openers. but probably not like in the middle.
Remember what I said, that when you're putting together a program, I like a console opener to be something which is going to open everything with a bang,
right,
get everything going. And that's what we're about.
There, we had another question. For pieces with rare or ethnic instruments, how do you go about obtaining those instruments and players? For example, we ended up using a dulcimer for Ori and the Blind Forest. I think in some places, like for our Okami arrangement, we did not have any shakuhachi players, unfortunately, in our group. So in that case, it ended up being up to the arranger to transpose for instruments that we did have.
Well, what was that piece now? I Am the One. That had a piece for Northumbrian pipes. We got quite close to be able to get a Northumbrian pipe player in to be able to play it. Well, much of the problem was you're coming along to play a very specialised instrument, and we're expecting you to play just a few notes in it.
Sure, yeah.
It was a big thing to ask them to do. But we did get some interest, but we never really pursued it because we were always unsure about that. So in that particular case, Jason, the arranger, he cued it in for oboe, and so we were able to do it that way. There aren't that many pieces, to be fair, that use rare or ethnic instruments, and if I'm blunt, not as many as I would like.
That's true. Yeah, it comes to mind that we'll talk about this in our Okami stream next week, that instruments that are non-Western will often show up as accents or as something that maybe make a cool sound effect. They won't necessarily be carrying the melody the same way that like a flute or a violin would, unless it's like a really specific kind of game. So, like Nigel was saying, would we really have the ability to bring somebody who's a professional, say, like shamisen player, and to only play a couple notes at a time for like a flavor text, so to speak?
Right.
So in that case, then it's a totally different challenge trying to, so we can't feasibly get a bagpiper in. Like, how are we going to work around that kind of thing? So that's correct, yes.
And it's not as if something we can go and hire and give to you to play, for example. It's just not going to. It's not going to work out.
Well,
and these weren't even just regular Scottish bagpipes. These were Northumbrian bagpipes. And which is actually it sort of went around in a circle. Jason wrote for oboe, and I said, and I listened to concept file, and I said, this was really cool on Northumbrian pipes. And I said, listen to this, and he listened to it. Said, yeah, it would, and we tried, but failed, and so we had to go back to back to the oboe.
Well, I'm a secret bagpipe player next time.
Now, Joe, we've got something organised for our next small ensemble showcase.
All right, and got another question. What is your favorite instrument to listen to, if such an instrument exists?
Well, you know as well as I do, it's going to be on your mood, isn't it?
Definitely.
There are going to be some times when you want a full orchestra. You need everybody to be playing. There are times when you need the full sound of a church organ. We talked about Final Fantasy recently. One of the most amazing sounds that came out of this orchestra was Duet for Harps.
Oh my gosh, yes.
There was just nothing going on apart from two harpists playing from one of the Final Fantasy games. I think it might have been from two of the games. And that was just an amazing sound. And I listened to this, and I remember saying to a couple of people, when you just sit and listen to this sound, of human beings there isn't so much wrong with the world, and we're not doing too much of a bad mess of it after all. But I can't answer that question, because the answer has to be, what mood are we in?
Sure.
What mood am I in? What do I want to listen to? What day of work have I had? What is it I heard last time? I want to hear something completely different this time. And also, it's a politically difficult question for me to answer, because whatever answer is going to offend a lot of people.
What?
But it's perfectly true to say nearly all of the time, sooner or later, there's going to be something you think, I'm in the mood to go and listen to that.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, whenever someone asks me what is my favorite song, I'm always going,
I don't know, whatever it was yesterday.
Right.
So look at my CD collection. Also, my CD collection goes from, we talked about Supertramp actually before the Twitch was on. We talked a little bit about Supertramp. So my CD collection includes music of my time in college in the 70s, like Supertramp and the Electric Light Orchestra, Class 2, with a very obscure band from Canada, and some groups like that. And I have classical music, which it goes all the way from Monteverdi through Baroque, through classical, through early and high romantic, to the big four stuff of the 20th century. And music, obviously band music, being a band conductor as well. So I have music in my collection of all types. It's a lot of people sometimes are surprised when they think, oh, you're a conductor of a symphony orchestra, that you would have something by Rick Wakeman or by Gordon Giltrap in your album collection. But I say, why should that be a problem? Why should you refuse to listen to one type of music? Why shouldn't you broaden your horizons? And that comes back to what I'm attempting to do with GSO as well. Broaden the horizons of the performers and the listeners.
Absolutely.
There are a couple of pieces of music, genres of music I've had difficulty getting into, probably because I've never had a mentor explain it to me. So avant-garde jazz. My most recent CD is an avant-garde jazz CD. I've played it once and I doubt I'm going to play it again because I haven't had somebody explain it to me.
Sure, yeah, give you some context.
It's really crazily difficult to listen to because it was unrehearsed, literally avant-garde, played on jazz instruments. And it was very difficult to work out what was going on at any sort of time.
All right, the final battle. Let's see if I can get it to the very end. Boom. Stomp on the glass, I know that much. And then some lava comes out. And then it's very exciting. And your tail's bothering you. Whoa, jeez. Alright. Nope. Nope. This one, okay, I see. Come on, buddy. Come stomp on me! There we go. Alright, well, I've got a couple minutes left. If anyone has any last-minute questions for Nigel, otherwise I will probably fail miserably to finish this Bowser fight and we'll call it a day. So be sure to join us next week for Okami, coming up on June 4th. I've lost a couple of months there. And then after that, we'll be doing Ghosts of Miami, a new visual novel that will be coming out soon that I ended up actually doing a song for, so that'll be a fun stream as well. Step on it. This one, Bowser, this one. What? What?
So if I could perhaps finish by saying to everybody out here who's an arranger, thank you very much for your work. Carry on doing an awesome job. For everybody out there who is not an arranger, write. Talk to people. Feel encouraged. We want you to be writing music for WMGSO, and we want to perform it as well. For everybody out there who's played in the orchestra or is playing in the orchestra, thank you so much for making it an amazingly wonderful core part of my life. For anybody who may be listening now or to the recording of this who's not in the orchestra, but lives in the DC area and is interested in making live music of video games, please just look at wmgso.org and sign up. Because we would love to see you, we'd love to have you playing with us.
With a too bad. So thanks so much everyone for watching. We will see you next week.
Before we go, Synfo Gamer, TLDR, yes please.
Definitely. We would love to do a local GSO concert, and maybe at our next development team meeting we can have a chat about that, see how that goes. But we'll see you next time. Thanks again so much for watching. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.